Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Talk with Kiet podcast, where we connect people, ideas, and capital to make a difference in the world. Now, today I am on with my buddy Christopher Kong. Chris is a serial entrepreneur and an early stage investor at PaperJet Ventures. Chris and I today will talk about his extensive career and entrepreneur journey, as well as how to be a great mentor for startups. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, kid. It's been a while, right, since we last actually met in person. I can't
It
believe I
has,
left like New York 10
yeah.
years ago. Yeah, I probably left like 10 years ago. It was back over the summer, but yeah, it's been it seems like another lifetime.
I know. I think the last time we met was in Shanghai. So time
That's
definitely
right.
flies.
Yeah,
And Chris, it's definitely a timely conversation because I am actually a mentor as part of the TechStar 2023 class.
awesome.
So
Yeah,
hopefully to pick up some insight from you how to be a good mentor for startups. Um, Typically what we start with this podcast is really an origin story.
okay.
I'm not even sure a lot of your recent contact know you start out as a banker, right? You in the leverage finance space in banking. So tell us about that banking career.
Yeah, so that was kind of like my first job out of school. Like typical folks who grew up in New York, finance seems to be like the default career. And so as of went to NYU, Stern, graduated, and immediately got into banking. My plan was always work for a couple of years as an analyst and then go back to school and figure something else. But during time just kind of naturally never happened. Life is strange sometimes, right? Was an analyst, then promoted to associate. By the time after like 10 years became a VP, and by that time it doesn't make sense to go back to school or do something else. But at the same time I was like contemplating, well, that's not really what I always wanted to plan in my life. But so kind of left banking after that. During that time I was recruited by some of the folks that I know in the same network, and to think about getting into tech. I become a founder. Did not have any experience whatsoever, but the idea was intriguing, and I just dive straight into it.
So technically you did go back to school in a way, right? Because it's like getting an education, just being in the startup world. Well, one of the things that I realized is you actually started this journey earlier than the trend we're seeing now, where we're seeing a lot of people in finance and capital markets are now, flocking to the startup world.
Yeah.
I mean, what advice do you have for people that's really going through this journey now? Because you started this journey in like 08, 09, right?
Yeah, I started during the time at that time. So right now we have we're in a big AI era, right? Back then, big data was the hard thing, so everyone was trying to build a startup during that time. One thing I wish I would done differently, for anyone who's thinking about like joining a startup company, or become a founder, is really understand the core problem that you're trying to solve, right? That means talking to customers. That means really validating your ideas before you actually start building a product or raising money, for that matter. I would say that was my mistake, right? When we started the company, we thought we had an awesome idea. We're building an inventory management system, right? Basically helping offline and online stores manage their inventory, selling online. But we had a great idea. We started working on product. I was doing fundraising and stuff like that. But looking back, that was the wrong way. I didn't really have like the right ecosystem. Was not as mature as right now back in New York anyway, especially not in Bay Area. I don't think I have enough folks who are going through the same journey who can advise me better. Spending time talking to customers, doing all this customer discovery process. That's like part of the first thing that and since I'm a mentoring right now, it comes in full circle. And anytime I talk to founders or future founders, that's the first thing I would tell them. Start focusing on the problem, validating the ideas, talk to customers, doing all this customer discovery. Don't start thinking about raising money and then start building. Because that's a lot of mistake that's most folks fall into.
But what are your advice today in terms of someone that was in your seat like a very high paying banking job, like do they start and just go and launch their own startup? Do they actually work for Series B, Series C startup? Do they work with an existing founding team that's going to see, like, what would your advice be given the environment we're in now?
It really depends on your background, right? If you're curious about in startup company, it's quite a leap to leave your high paying job and joining a company, or starting your own without like a proper research, with a proper network. My advice is probably start building your network. Your network is the key, right? Find out the folks, talk to them. Maybe if there's friends of you who are starting a company, consider like investing, or at least get plugged into the deal flow so you can meet more founders, more startup company. uh if you're at the later stage of your career where you have certain kind of expertise, right? You can consider joining as an operator or as an advisor, right? To more, I guess, later stage company, right? Later stage company are focusing on growth. So for instance, if so I have a portfolio company focusing in the telecom industries. If that's one of your superpower, you have a lot of contacts. Maybe you can consider joining in, helping the company to scale on the business development or partnership front. Work with what you have, basically, right? Uh, if in terms of starting your own company, yeah, if you have some background in where you have some insights in a particular domain that you have, start with that, validate, talk to customers. You can do it as a side project if possible. Build like a prototype, validate that. And then, if the market tells you that, hey, there is a real problem, they kind of guide you in terms of building the right product for the right audience. Then maybe you can start thinking about starting a company.
Yeah. And with your experience in terms of, because you were in New York, you were in Shanghai, and now you're in the Bay Area. Like, what's the difference when it comes to like the startup, the creation environment?
Oh, I would say definitely the ecosystem, right? The one thing I really, appreciate living in the Bay Area is meeting a lot of like-minded folks. So I'll give you an example, right? Um, like most folks during the pandemic, we were working from home, right? At that time, I was a product manager for early stage company. We built like AI contract management tools. But anyway, I still have the finance guy inside, so I was curious about investing. I was fortunate enough, to be able to have some liquidity, so I start to invest in YC something, YC, which is a Y company, this accelerator company that produce a lot of unicorns. And during that time, I also joined Hustle Fund Angel Squad. Hustle Fund is this early stage VC based in Bay Area, but they have like a lot of they have this awesome community of tech founders, operators, a lot of experienced folks can work in Google, Apple, Tesla. So I met a lot of them, and they're like-minded folks. They're starting the journey around the same time, and soon, we just kind of collaborate a lot. Collaborate basically, I'll find deal, we'll share deal flows, I'll bring them in, and if there's give an example, one of my earlier deals is a deep tech company building electric motor for aviation aerospace. Um, so I managed to meet some early Tesla employees. So I bring them to the meeting. They basically became my technical advisor for the deal, right? And then we collaborate. Or if it's like a SaaS company, I'll bring like a senior designer from Apple, and we'll do like a lot of product design, review with the founders in the early stage and guide them. So it's like this rich ecosystem where you get to meet a lot of like-minded folks, and there's a lot more opportunity for collaboration, and you kind of scale, by building this network. So that's one thing I really appreciate, living in the Bay Area compared to other cities that I have been.
Now, has the fact that you've worked at startups and understand the startup journey ecosystem actually helped you as a good startup investor? Because you're a pretty successful angel investor. You now have PaperJet Ventures, etc. Like, how has
Yeah.
that helped you with deciding where and who and how to invest?
Yeah. So it helps me a lot in terms of all of facade, right? From deal sourcing, the earlier over the summer, I did a syndicate of a space launch company called Origa Space. The founder used to work, in a fintech company in a couple companies ago, with the founder of that AI startup company that I used to be a PM. So he introduced me to the founder of this space launch company. And that's not very, it's quite common to have a lot of inbound intros from the people you met, right? I get a lot, not all of them works, but I get like a lot of folks who are leaving Google or Apple, starting their own company. So you get to have that early conversation. So deal flow is definitely the key, right? And a lot of this comes from the network. But then post investing, um, and then in terms of investing, I get to bring a lot of value added folks, right? That I think it would be a good fit. For example, I have introduced quite a amount of folks to become a startup advisor. Um, the same company H3X, which is building this electric motor, right? Then the tech company, one of the folks from my House of Fun Angel Squad community is a supply chain expert working at Apple. So I sort of, made the connection that he could be a good fit in terms of advising the founders how to navigate through supply chain, especially during the pandemic when it became one of the number one issues. And he became an advisor helping them also on business development and partnership. But you have all this pocket of opportunities to bring people along. When the interests align, it's great things happen. I basically pride myself as being a little bit more hands on, not just writing a check, but also bringing experts from my network and helping founders in the early days of the journey. So it could be like I said, it could be anything from building product and design, right, to random things like there was one robotic company, they're looking for someone an expert in brand marketing management, so which I happen to have, but it's super duper random, that you
Yeah.
don't see quite often.
So that's a good transition. That is, I guess being a mentor helps also with deal sourcing, right?
Yeah.
So the first question I have is, how do you decide what startup to mentor, what not to like what startup to like how you pick your mentorships?
Yeah. So really simple. Obviously you cannot talk to every single company, every single industry out there, right? So you really need to align in terms of your interest and passion. Over the course of my angel investing career, I started to develop, my own investment thesis, things that I know a lot about, things that I have expertise in my network to help me with diligence, and also deal flows, and also in aligns in terms of interest and passion, right? For certain things like direct to consumer, um, I don't have any of those, right? So it'd be very hard for me to become an investor or mentor for that fact. So I stick with things that I know, which is AI, right? I've done, I was a product manager, and deep tech. I have a massive, um, what do you call, passion for electrification of transportation and space, right? I was an early investor of Tesla back then when they were public, when after IPO. And space, I've been a big fan of, the space industry since I was young. So I started with that, and then I met a lot of folks who are early employees of those, well-known companies, and then it just scales from there, right? So I mentor because of that, especially on the tech side, because you rarely see someone with a business background that also have a concentration or focus in deep tech. I was able to have the opportunity to mentor teams, from MIT lab, right, over the summertime. Again, network is the key. One of the founders I back, she's the founder of Data Bento, which is this fintech company based in Boston. and she's also on the board of MIT, and so I asked her, yeah, I'm looking to find some. I call it, I'm jokingly tell my friends I call it my pre-seed strategy, basically finding founders before they start their company, because I'm curious to find the two curiosity that I have is can I find the next Elon Musk or Jensen Huang before they start their journey. The other curiosity is can I find like what's the breakout tech that's going to come out of the lab, right? A lot of techs comes out of the lab like GPS, computer vision, but the companies that build their business model around those, like Apple, they don't invent the tech, right? It comes from the lab. So I would like to get the chance to get a glimpse of what the future is about. So that's like my motivation to do some mentoring, finding people and getting a glimpse of the future. So Christina, because she's on the board, she introduced me to the folks who runs the mentoring program at MIT. And then when they saw that I have a strong deep tech, focus and experience, they set me up with a team building a non-rechargeable battery. So the way it works is basically you spend time on the research on the lab, but there's a process between commercial, from the lab to the market in terms of commercialization. So a lot of university teams they go through the program called NSF, with the National Science Foundation, the ICOP team, and the research folks, they get paired up with industry mentor, and they set me up, and we had a connection. So during the summertime, I mentored the team. So basically, really simple. We go through the customer discovery process to figure out are they building the right product? Is there a market need? Is there a problem solution fit? Uh, is there a path they launch a company or partner or license it out? So those are like the key questions you want to ask right before you actually start a company. So I have contacts, I set them up, I coach them through the customer discovery, and then hopefully eventually we get to a path where we can get an answer. Sometimes starting a company is not the right path to take. Sometimes you need to do a lot more, but it's great experience, right? I met other founders on the same cohort. I get to see all the different tech, and I get to and it aligns in terms of what I'm doing, in terms of my thesis, in terms of creating another channel for deal flows and building a network. So I definitely recommend folks to, if you have interest or curiosity about mentoring, just tap into your existing network, slowly build up, find what's your superpower. So find out, what is your key industry you think you have an edge on. And also, it needs to also align in terms of your own personal goal, interest, and passion, because it's every effort here is kind of speculative, but there's a big payoff, right, in terms of being able a chance to get great experience, but also finding awesome founders to back that could potentially generate a massive return.
Yeah, and so what would you, I guess, view as the defining attributes of being a great mentor?
I would say first and foremost, probably you need to have the right background and experience already that really benefit, right? It's hard for me to imagine someone to become a mentor to a founder if they never done that, they never started a company before, or they have never become an operator and an early stage employees. It's hard for you to guide someone, because you never walked that path before. But it's okay, right? Mentoring has come in different form and shape. If you look at typical early stage company pitch deck on the team side, they have advisor, right? Advisor could come in the form of the expert level, former founder, or VC, but they also have like the specialist, right? Specialist could be someone who works with a government channel, used to be part of DOE, DOD, right? That can guide the founders into navigating through the landscape of selling to the government, or if you have like industry experience, you could be the industry mentor, how to navigate through um, partnership and biz dev, selling your products to telecom industry, for instance, right? So, but I would say, in generally speaking, if you want to become a mentor, you should at least have some experience of being in the startup ecosystem.
And do you set boundaries with your mentees? I would imagine like there are instances where they become overly reliant on you. They're saying like,
Uh,
not a fish versus give them a fish. Like, how do you draw
so
those boundaries?
yeah, I mean, first of all, you should have some kind of alignment in terms of expectation and interest, right? If it's just a one-off, or ad hoc, kind of opportunities, yeah, it's fine, right? Uh, so for instance, I work with my close friend from Apple. She has like a design hour. We'll bring portfolio companies in. We do like 1 hour review, right? Of anything from onboarding to the core app, UI UX, experience. But if it's going to be like a recurring thing, a couple of times a week, then it's going to be hard to provide this kind of, service without having some kind of, that you need to account for the other person's time, right? So I would advise, like, if there's anything kind of very more formalized that's going to be recurring, consider doing some kind of like a startup, advisor, where that the mentor can have an opportunity to, earn some equity. And the agreement is, I think it's called fast, pretty standard. Depending on the stage of the company, there is a percentage that get vested over a 3-4 year period of time. Any of this is pretty standard right now. So you can formalize that and making sure that, but needs to make sure that there is uh, what do you call it, expectation, and and all the time commitment needs to be kind of clarified, have some kind of agreement upon it. But if it's just anything kind of one off here, I'm an investor, so I kind of I get requests once a while, sometimes pretty active, like a fundraising stuff, right? I'll do like a pitch deck review, data room, any of that stuff. But sometimes when they're not in fundraising mode, I just get updates and here and there. There's no what do you call it? There's no need to have like a weekly or monthly calls to discuss, and that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And I guess to the point you just mentioned about being an investor, like, what is your take on the current environment?
Uh it's I think we're getting some kind of clarity in terms of the macro, right? I think what the market is expecting. I mean, I'm pretty active as you are in the public market, so I follow the macro quite closely, more than I really want to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
But
saw
I
what
think the
happened
general,
Monday and Tuesday this week as well.
yeah, I mean, I think the general consensus, my understanding, right? I'm not an expert, is we're gonna have some kind of the path towards reducing the interest rate, so that we can kind of move. So the public market will have some kind of clarity. The IPO market needs to improve, right? Even though we have a few companies, during the fall time. But a lot of money in the venture side gets stuck basically in late stage, mid stage, pre IPO, whatever you want to call it. They're looking for liquidity, until we get some clarity. It'll be very hard to keep adding new money, into the system, right? When a lot of folks, getting all this paper markup that no longer really exists.
Yeah,
But on the early stage, I would say it's exciting times, because a lot when I started investing, a lot of companies were built during the zero interest era, right? So it's to raise some money, especially in the hot sector back then, like Web3, or AI right now. It's not that hard. But then you get basically you're not building companies on organically. You're using a lot of cheap capital during that era to fuel the growth, and it's not sustainable. And you can see like a lot of companies, if they cannot raise current in the current environment, there's a lot of them gonna basically die. But if you're starting a new company like from scratch, where you don't have any kind of excess baggage, I like to say, right? And you're thinking you have the right mindset, building companies organically, uh, building products that really solve real problems, right? having a validated your solution problem, and really having the right business model that can really help your company become more sustainable rather than relying on external capital. You have more control. You're thinking about you're minimizing dilution that helps you as a founder, as well your startup employees. I think it is a great time to you know to start a company, to be honest, because I think we're gonna go into a different cycle, and you'll be in position when things improve. Uh, and that's why I kind of enjoy advising in the kind of, I call it the pre-founders, right, or folks who are thinking about starting a company right now, because I can guide them towards thinking about building company for a longer term, with a longer term mindset, solving real problems, and I can guide them in terms of navigating through the landscape right now in terms of fundraising, right? I wrote like a Substack about it, like how to think about funding with this new era, right? If you're starting from like a pre-seed all the way to like a Series A. So I actually think it's a good time to become investors, or at least be more active, getting more
Yeah, so
plugged in into the ecosystem.
talk a
Yeah,
bit
there's all
about
tons of deals.
yeah, like the playbook. Like if you're now fundraising as a startup, like what is the playbook? Like what is some of your advice? Like part of what you wrote in your Substack.
Yeah, it depends on what stage, right? For a lot of advisors, for a lot of founders, I actually suggest them to think about, either a bootstrap, use your own money, right? Get validated, if let's say you're building an autonomous or AI company, find a way to work, start talking to potential customers. Maybe they can help back you a little bit. Maybe they can provide all the things you need to get the initial MVP done, like, providing data, for instance, right? But think about bootstrap. If you want to raise, do it, organically, right? You can raise friends and family around, but try to keep your costs super lean. Try to right size where you are based on the stage of the company, and not like over hire and pre-spend, and constantly think and be nimble, be mindful that it might take longer to raise right now. It's not like the prior era, so we gotta make sure you have enough runway uh, not to go broke basically during the time. You can also thinking about joining accelerators, like YC. It's hard to get in, but for some companies it really makes sense, right? Because if let's say you're a SaaS company, you can get initial organic traction and sell to your cohorts, the other startup company in your in the program, so like those are some of the things that like I kind of discuss, on my Substack, basically.
Yeah. And talk about that Substack, like running a Substack and launching a newsletter. Like talk to us a bit about that experience.
Yeah, initially it was just I'm trying to write to kind of demystify the whole startup investing experience, right? I definitely think there's a lot of inefficiency and lack of transparency. Like, for instance, right, the one that really resonates with a lot of folks. Most of my readers are not like, I would say not founders or investors, but actually tech, employees, right? And here in New York and everywhere, right, you get options, but a lot of folks do not know how to value the options. So I want to like bring up those conversation, reason why you should, think about, getting into investing, but not necessarily to, try to hit a home run, but looking for ways to learn about how things works, how to value equity, how to look for the companies to join. If you think about startup company, what are the key things, why whether it's the right path for you or not. But yeah, I started that Substack essentially to kind of bring more transparency into the world of investing, funding, provide more like a VC insights. But it slowly evolved into you know uh, in parallel with my own journey, as an employee then to an investors right now. So I'm slowly focusing on building like a playbook in terms of helping founders how to think about fundraising, uh, bring some more insights in terms of my experience, mentoring with the university labs and working with deep tech companies. But I definitely want to kind of broaden that up a little bit, maybe bring more insights into some of the industries that I cover in my investment thesis, like especially on the deep tech side.
Yeah. That's awesome, Chris. Thank you for being on today, Chris, and thank you for all your amazing insights. Now, typically, tradition, how we end this is really about a question back to you, to the audience, in terms of, who are the people we want to connect with, and how can the audience help you?
Sure, yeah. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter, right? You can look me up at Christopher J Kong. You can also check me out on my Substack, chriskong.substack.com. But yeah, would love to, talk to folks, especially if you're thinking about joining a startup company, thinking about starting a company, especially if you're founders, I definitely want to talk to you, especially focusing on deep tech and AI. Even in investing, I have a syndicate, but I definitely want more folks, more diversity, especially right to explore angel investing, because I think it's not just about finding next unicorn to back, which obviously that's our main goal anyway, but
That's
also a
fine.
great way to meet other folks that could be beneficial for your career. I met a lot of folks since I invest, or the founders, or especially on the founder side and operators, and it has really helped me to grow and create a lot of opportunity for me. All those things that I have mentioned to you in the call is the result of the network that I'm being part of, and how all the initiative that I made to scale that. I definitely want to bring more folks into this world, because I think the ecosystem will benefit from it when different people bring their superpower expertise. It would enrich it, and it could create a lot more opportunities for everyone, including yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it. And one thing to add is, if you're currently in a banker and you want to transition, reach out to Chris.
Okay.
Thank you for being on in Insight. Thank you to the audience for your continued support. Have a good one. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Bye.